joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Trees standing firm, hold the secret of inner power. Give us, when tested, strength to endure. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Stars in abyss, set your light through eternity. Lord, when in darkness your radiance we see. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Flowers so soft and fragile, stay fragrant though pressed to the ground. May we thus learn forbearance, for in kindness love is found. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
Mountains remote and still hint at higher worlds unseen. So may our lives be soaring and serene. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Rivers seek passage unhindered by rock or tree. So may our lives flow steadfast toward the sea. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing. Mother, we thank you, your joy shines in everything. Open these channels that the world once more may sing.
are no riches that death can destroy. I crave only in your love and your joy. The dancers will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend.
Good evening, Ananda Portland. We are delighted this evening to have with us Nayaswamis, Jyotish and Devi, our spiritual directors, speaking to us from Ananda Village. They will be talking on the topic of how to live fearlessly in these uncertain times. And a number of people have submitted questions also, and as time permits, I'm sure that they will address a number of those. So without further delay, it's my honor, my pleasure to welcome Jyotish and Devi. Thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Well, first of all, let us say that we're very, very happy to be able to share with you. And we're not only coming to you from Ananda Village, but we're coming to you from our living room. So those of you who haven't yet visited us, you're now in our living room with us. And in this space, I must say that all of you have lost all of that weight that you have been worried about. And now you're weightless and you're just spirit with us. So it's actually quite a nice spiritual analogy.
And I'll just add that we're very, very happy to be able to share this time with you. And thank you, David and the choir, for that beautiful music. And that's such an important, Swami's music is such an important part of living fearlessly at this time. So first, Jyotish and I will speak, not very long, about this topic of living fearlessly in challenging times. And then we have a number of questions that we'll answer, very good questions that people have submitted. And I must say, in looking at these questions, I was impressed by the consciousness of the people in your Sangha, because all of the questions were just how they weren't personal, they were how we can help others, how we can effectively navigate in these difficult times. So Jyotish will begin.
I'm trying to. Okay,
You
so
want to just go to you?
yeah, I think we'll do it that way. So, okay, let's adjust this a little bit. So we're talking, as Devi said tonight, about living fearlessly in these challenging times. And the essence of this is, one might say, also the essence of the spiritual path, that one lives fearlessly when one has his energy, his or her energy, under control. The reactive process has been tamped down, and our energy is directed in a positive and expansive way. When we do that, automatically we become happier, we become more concerned about others, less concerned about ourselves. And the net result is, when we don't think about ourselves, we don't live in fear. When we do think about ourselves, then we increase the contractive nature of our consciousness, and as we contract, then we become more and more insecure and more unhappy. I'm sure you have friends or have people that you know of who essentially are negatively directed in their thoughts and in their words and in their actions. And those people inevitably are not very happy. They're concerned about themselves. So courage and fear, they begin in the heart. And so, in fact, the very word courage, I assume, comes from Latin, but it's also in the Romance languages. Le coeur is the heart in French. And so the courage and fearlessness come as well as the lack of courage or fear and being afraid originate in the heart. The heart, as we yogis know, is not the physical heart, but rather it's the Anahata chakra. And it is in that area that Master explained that the chitwa, or the feeling nature, he called it primordial feeling nature, that's where that is centered. And so our feeling nature is in the heart. And Patanjali's classic definition of
Sorry, I was adjusting the mic.
yeah,
It was not
you
on
leaned
full,
in.
yeah, it was not on full volume.
Good. At any rate, Patanjali's classic definition of yoga or union is the neutralization of the eddies or whirlpools of that chitwa, heart energy or feeling energy. So when we neutralize that, when we have that under control, we automatically expand our consciousness, and the ultimate expansion is to achieve samadhi or achieve union with God. But that's a relatively high state, a relatively advanced state. And so where do we start? Where are we now? How do we work with it right now? Well, think of the heart as the pivotal point, as kind of neutral. And from there, in fact, let's think of the heart for this analogy as the surface of water. And so you have a little something that represents you, and it's floating right on the surface of a pond. Now, if that pond is ruffled, then whatever that is that represents you, let's say you're floating on that pond, when the pond is ruffled and waves are going, then you're moving up and down, and you're then mentally agitated. Now, if you start getting heavy, let's say that you take on some mental weight, you start worrying, you start thinking of something. Since we're using a physical analogy, every worried thought, let's say, is a little 1 pound weight. And so you start worrying, you start adding 1 pound weights to yourself. You inevitably are going to sink below the surface, and you're going to continue to sink below until you end up down in the muck and the mire. And then your vision is obscured, you can't see your way out, and so on. Coming back to the surface where it's neutral, if you add positive thoughts, if you add good thinking, if you add expansive consciousness and attunement with God, attunement with your own higher nature, you grow lighter and lighter. And in this case, in this analogy, you're going to levitate. We had a very good friend, in fact, the man who designed both the clinic and several houses here at Ananda Village, including the house that Devi and I built. And he was a very, very interesting fellow, an architect, landscape designer, and so on. He helped design many of the structures in Yosemite Park. he had a delightful mind, and we would have these wonderful conversations. At one point, he said to us, you know, we architects and engineers, we study the effects of gravity because we have to be concerned about, you know, the strength of the buildings and the pillars that hold it up so that the walls don't sag and don't fall down. And we have to constantly be concerned about the effects of gravity. He said, but you at Ananda, you study the effects of levity, meaning the expansion. And it was a fun way of putting it. So coming back to this, if we're floating at neutral, the more we adhere to the laws of levity and expansion, the higher and more free we float. And the more we worry about ourselves and be concerned and open ourselves to the influence of others who are I don't know, in turmoil, the more we become weighty and sink. When I say others, there are many influences, but especially at this time, the media is designed in order to rile us up. And so it's, we're going to address this later on, how much media and how much contact with the world and so on. So I won't go into it here because we are going to go into it later. But please understand that the powerful influence that magnetic negativity has to draw us downward, or magnetic positivity has to expand us upward. And so the essence of living fearlessly is to live with uplifted energy. And our teachings give us, we couldn't have designed a course better adapted to the time that we're in than our basic spiritual teachings. Pranayama means control of the breath. In the Mahabharata, the pranayama is represented by Bhima, and he is in the heart center. And so pranayama, heart center, those techniques of energy control allow us to take control over that ruffled feelings of chitta. And if you're anxious, if you're worried, if you're fearful, understand quite clearly that your chitta, the heart center, is agitated. You need to calm it. You need to direct your thoughts positively. And the more you can do that in positive thinking, in meditation, in affirmations, in especially in toward the end of meditation, to try to attune yourself to the qualities of God, of joy and peace and calmness and wisdom, to attune yourself to those, and love, of course, to those qualities, the more you become expansive and godlike. And so our path is marvelously designed to help us through hard times. And so the question of living fearlessly, I would say the short answer is practice your spiritual path, practice your techniques, and that will, to a great extent, help you in calming the reactive process and turning your energy and therefore your mind and your thoughts in a positive direction. Then when you do that, you also become a glowing channel of light and strength and positivity from which others can draw strength. So Devi will talk a little bit, and then we will have time for answering specific questions.
Okay. So once again, we want to thank Surendra and Lorna for inviting us to be with you all, and just to say, we're sorry we won't be able to be there for this summer, usually we come out and visit, but we'll be also recording a talk on Friday for your celebration of Masters coming to America. By the way, I saw the date that August 3rd, 1920 was the actual date the city of Sparta left India. So that's nice to think about. So when Surendra sent us the list of questions, he included one from himself. And when I read it, I thought, that's the heart of it. He said, Swami said that when things get difficult, to live joyfully. So I'm going to talk not so much about living fearlessly, which Jyotish expressed is associated with the heart chakra, but living joyously in challenging times. And what are some practical things we can do to facilitate this? Well, as we were saying, the calmness and courage are centered in the heart chakra. Joy is centered in the point between the eyebrows, the spiritual eye. And so, very self-evident, to live joyously, we must try to keep our consciousness centered at the spiritual eye as much as we can. Now, this may seem like a bit of a contradiction in terms, living joyfully in the middle of financial crises, pandemic, social unrest, racial tension. But Swami Kriyananda said something that it's a simple sentence, but it is so rich with meaning. One could really meditate on it for quite a long time. He said, there is a joy appropriate to every situation in life. So this is what we need to find. What kind of joy is appropriate now? It isn't the same as, let's have a nice vacation to Hawaii, or let this go on this lovely gathering with all our friends. These things are very limited now. We can't do them, but there is a joy appropriate to what we're living through right now. And that's what we need to discover. So here are some things that I've been working on, because we're all challenged. Our life is not what it had been, and things that outward activities that used to be fun, we can't do them anymore. So what can we do to live more joyously? First of all, as Jyotish has been saying, we need to really look at our sadhana now, our meditation and our spiritual practices, Kriya Yoga, energization, very, very important. And to look at them in perhaps a more structured way than we already would. So many of us included, are working at home now. And it's easy to just sort of let a schedule float away. But if you really look and see, no, this is the time we're going to get up, this is the time we're going to spend in meditation, and really try to work extra hard at having a structure in your day. It keeps the dogs of downward pulling energy and depression at bay. So, and in your meditation, really make an effort in your Kriya practice, if you have the Kriya technique, or just whatever techniques you have, to spend a good amount of time, maybe more time than you ordinarily do, concentrating at the center of joy, at the spiritual eye. Because this, as Master said, these practices change the molecular structure of the brain. And now scientists are proving that meditation, this is in fact true. And so to be regular, focused, consistent, maybe even working a little harder at your meditations right now, because we need them more. And then, as I said, energization. We need to fill the body with energy, because energy is joy. And so whatever you do in your life, Rose asked a question, and we'll talk about this more, to keep your energy up more, to good diet. This is an easy time just to get into bad eating habits because you're stuck at home. but make sure you're having good regular meals with vital, healthy food, and that you're not just introducing a lot of sugar or junk food into your diet. Another thing very important, what we give is what we get. If you want to be joyful, look at ways you can bring joy to other people. I remember once we were in the hospital with Swami Kriyanandaji. He had open heart surgery and he was recuperating. And his room, as you can well imagine, this was just in the local hospital in Nevada City, Grass Valley. His room was filled with flowers, more than we could find a place to put them. And at a certain point, he always thinking of the happiness of others. He said, you know, I bet there are people in this hospital who don't have anyone or maybe one person that comes to visit them and they don't have flowers in their room. And there were, I don't know, 5 or 6 of us in the room with Swamiji. He said, I want you to take all these flowers and cover the hospital, bring these flowers into every person's room that doesn't have the flowers in them. And it was such a joyful experience. I just felt like an angel of mercy, just carrying these flowers, and people were so grateful. So look at ways now that you can bring joy into other people's lives. Call a friend that you're not sure how they're doing. Send a fun little text to somebody. Look for something inspiring in the news, and there are things, and send that to a friend. Or so look at ways that you can bring joy into the world. It may just be in prayer, just praying for people. We have a very long and active prayer list now that we're constantly, well, this person's sick, we'll add them. Now they're well, we'll add someone else. But pray for others, send them joy. Master said, shoot people with the buckshot of your smiles. And just get on your computer and have a Zoom call or a Skype call with someone and just consciously smile and consciously feel like you're projecting energy from both your heart and your spiritual eye. This will uplift your consciousness. And then 2 more things, and then we'll begin talking about your questions, answering them. One is Sangha, Satsang, to connect with people of like mind. And one of the great ways of doing this, which you all did, and we so much enjoyed it, is through music. Don't let you can't meet live, I would expect, as for choir rehearsal, but do your virtual rehearsals, sing together, listen to Swami's music, play it, sing it, but join with your Guru Bhais, join with your brothers and sisters, because this is one of the things that's really happening at Ananda Village. You know, right now, I think you're escaping the smoke, but right now, we not only have the isolation of the COVID, but all the smoke from the Bay Area is blowing our way. We're not in any danger, but the air quality is actually worse here than it is in the cities in India where we're usually visiting at this time. But to come together, maybe you have a Zoom meditation with a friend or a Skype meditation with a small group of friends, singing together, meditating together, whatever it may be, but find ways to keep your Sangha vibrant, that you're still connecting, you're still supporting each other. Here at the village, we have a little team of volunteers that is calling every single person on Ananda's mailing list. It's a lot of people. And they're calling them, how are you doing? I don't know if we'll get through everybody, but you might do that. Get a team of volunteers. We just got, this was beautiful. We got an email today from Sagar, who works with the Lessons in Meditation Online. And he's been reaching out, writing to everybody, all of his students that are on his class. And he sent us an email he got from a woman in Santa Rosa. And she said, thank you so much for writing. She said, I'm in a evacuation shelter. I'm very down. I can't even get, I saw your email on my cell phone, but I so appreciate you writing. It's a ray of hope in very dark times. So let's be rays of joy to other people in very dark times, and join together with your Sangha, form teams in whatever way you can. But this is not the time to just, it's easy, too easy to start contracting. Oh, I can't go outside. I can't talk with people. I can't do this. And your energy field starts getting smaller and smaller. Consciously open up that bubble of joy and make it bigger and bigger. And these are ways that you can live joyously and fearlessly in challenging times. And I just want to show you, you may have seen this. This is a book that just came out from Crystal Clarity. It's called Stand Unshaken, Daily Inspiration for Living Fearlessly. And we didn't really have a lot to do with this book. They mainly, the Crystal Clarity team put it together. And I think Madhavi up there is part of that team. And it's they took excerpts from our blogs and paintings of Jyotish, and it's interspersed. And you can see the cover is a very beautiful painting of Jyotish, and throughout the book. So it's all quotes about living fearlessly from our blog, and people are enjoying it. It's being very helpful to people. So I think that's what we'll share as individuals. Now we'll both come back on the screen, and we have questions, wonderful questions from all of you.
Okay, this first questions is actually quite an interesting and important one. When talking about current events and conditions with family members or friends who do not have any spiritual tendencies, what are some things that I can offer them that are not perceived as churchy? So
And this is from Marjorie Lambert.
yeah, probably all of us have connections with people who are not connected to our spiritual path, or probably any spiritual path. And so the very same concepts can be shared with people. You just have to change the language. So I was talking about, controlling the chitwa through pranayama in the heart and raising the prana up to the spiritual eye. So if you go to somebody and say, we have these teachings and you just have to control your chitwa and raise your prana up to the spiritual eye, and then you'll feel a lot better. It's probably not going to go over quite so well. But you take exactly the same concepts, but put them, relanguage them, and you could say to a person, you were saying that you were feeling anxious. I've found that when I feel anxious, I have a kind of constricted feeling in my heart area. And what I try to do is just to try to relax in that heart area. And I found if I can take a few deep breaths, and that I feel a lot better. And it's really simple. I do it a few times each day. And whenever negativity comes into my mind, and I found it's really helpful. And I'm trying during these times to keep my mind as positive as possible. Exactly the same concepts, but not churchy and not put in terms of the, the direct teaching. So approach it a little bit sideways. Swami Kriyananda said something very interesting. He said, when you're talking with somebody that isn't on the path, just mention some spiritual concept, not, as I say, not in necessarily spiritual language, but mention some concept. And then if they aren't interested, don't go there anymore. But if they are a little bit interested, then just take the next step and let them lead the discussion in the direction that is helpful. So these are a few thoughts, and I'm sure Davy has some too.
Yeah, I'll just add, some years ago, we were teaching a course in how to teach meditation. And part of the exercise we did with the teacher trainees was we said, we're going to teach a group of people the basic beginning meditation techniques. And we assigned each one of them a different target group. So one person, you're teaching basic meditation to mothers of preschool children. Another, you are teaching basic meditation to at-risk teenagers. You are teaching basic meditation to elderly people or handicapped people. And you have to adapt the technique to that audience. So it's really a very fun practice to try to translate, how do I present this in such a way that is a language the other person can understand? And it's not that hard. Just try to tune into where they're coming from. And, I'll just add here, there was two other things I wanted to talk about when I was talking about living joyously. One is humor. Try to introduce humor into your life. Try to find something you can laugh about each day, a joke, a story. And the other is try to do something fun every day, whatever it may be. If it's Jyotish loves to paint, he tries to get in there every day. I like to find new interesting recipes. It's fun for me. But try to find something fun every day. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question. And this is from Prem Das Grady, Bill. Do you ever pull back from the news entirely, at least for a time? I find that doing so fairly often these days helps me avoid feeling disempowered.
Yeah, I'll address that. And then I'll also address it in such a way. There's another question that was written in about the balance between not connecting with the world, kind of withdrawing and essentially being out of it, and not being real about what's going on. So let's come back to the news. First of all, as I said, we should realize that the purpose of most news is to arouse negative emotions one way or another. When we were growing up, we had news sources that everybody trusted, Edward R. Murrow, and just people that the whole country felt like they trusted. And whether they were trustworthy or not, they gave news. They didn't give 5% news and 95% opinion about the news, or 5% news and 95% spinning that news in such a way that it became politically active or whatever. So understand that the news that we're getting today is not very much news. It's only a homeopathic dose of news, and the rest is opinion. And it's chosen carefully to elicit negative emotions, especially fear, since we're talking about living fearlessly. So a second thing is that Master used to read the newspapers, but he got a newspaper. He read the newspaper, however long it took, whatever articles he was interested. That was it. But now with the news primarily coming on the internet, you read a bit of news and then 10 minutes later you think, well, I wonder if there's something new, and you read it again, or you read a little variation on it. If you find yourself looking at the news multiple times a day, then you're addicted to something that is not healthy to you. And that's different from saying, oh, well, I'm just never ever going to look at anything and I'm going to disconnect and I don't care what's going on. I'm just going to get in my spine. That's not going to be entirely helpful at this point. But putting yourself on a daily diet of news would be very healthy. And as Prem Das mentioned, once in a while to take a fast, a daily fast from the news, because like any other addiction, as soon as you fast from it, even for a short period of time, you find that the addiction goes away. So if you're addicted to sugar, don't eat sugar for a week and you won't feel those sugar hungers that you have. So a little bit of fasting from a news addiction can be helpful.
Yeah, I'll add to that. And I very much agree. It's good to be informed, but then also to make up your own mind. Does this ring true? This is where intuition and spiritual insight is very important. Do I trust the person who's writing this? Does is a person of reputable credentials? And I'm going to probably go out on thin ice here, but I think it perhaps is important. You know, there's so many conspiracy theories out there right now. And, you know, you look at them, you don't know what to believe. But try, before you accept anything, really try to do fact checking. Is this real? Is this true? Are these reputable sources? Is this fact-based? And someone recently sent me this long letter about some conspiracy theory. And I wrote this person back, and please don't send us those because we don't really read them, but by and large. But I wrote back the person and I said, you know, I don't find this helpful. These things are fear-based and they just increase, there's nothing you can do about it. But I said, you know, there is one conspiracy that I believe in wholeheartedly. And that's that behind the scenes, Babaji and Jesus and the great masters of our path are designing the whole drama, have written the script. And that gives me a sense of deep security. If this subgroup or that subgroup is manipulating power, they're not the end all and be all of what goes on in this world. Put your faith in God and Guru. And that's the only secret agenda. And it's not so secret, but that secret agenda that's going on. So I'll read the next question and then you can answer. So this is from Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Sorry, I can't see you. She said, and it's sort of related, but I try to avoid the political scene, especially these days when everything is so rancorous. Indeed it is. But is it important as a devotee to vote?
Okay, thank you for asking that, Nancy. I try to avoid the political scene because it's so rancorous. Right now, the world is undergoing a much more serious disease than the COVID virus. And that's the fracturing of society and the kind of movement into camps that are both self-isolating, self-reinforcing, and completely opposed to other camps. And the politics that are here, especially in this country, but also all over the world, but because it's a worldwide phenomenon, but it's expressed locally to us in this country, I avoid trying to get into politics very much. I have some quite strong political feelings in the sense of who I would prefer to see in office. But Devi and I don't talk about that very much, because if we were to, I don't know, start talking politically, it would, in my mind, diminish our power to be pure expressions of light and of master's path. And it would get people into thinking about something other than the spiritual principles that, to me, are the real solution to all of this. Politics is not a solution. No matter who becomes president in the next election, things are not going to change all that much. But it can have a very definite influence. So coming back to the vote, what can you do about politics if you don't want to get involved? The one thing that you actually have as something that will sway the election one direction or another is to vote. And so I would urge everyone not only to vote themselves, but to urge others to also vote. And I'm not saying that you should vote for one party or another. As I said, I have my strong leanings toward what I think is the better course for the country. And that's the way that I will vote. But I'm not going to politicize this discussion, except to say that do take action, because our actions, and especially our positive thoughts, will in fact be very important in the coming months and years ahead of us.
Yes, I'll just add, I totally agree. I think our power to vote absolutely needs to be exercised now in whatever way you believe. But I'll say this, it's a little tricky, but there are many challenges to our democracy right now. And I think we need to affirm that this is a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And, people have fought very hard to have the right to vote. And I think now is the time to exercise it. And, in part, I just want to add a slightly balancing thought to something Jyotish said. He said nothing that much will change. I don't think whoever wins, I don't think he meant that entirely. I think we need to hold up a consciousness of what is the core values of our nation, and then unity, acceptance of all, serving those who are less fortunate than ourselves, and so forth. And I think, and underlying all that, strength of character and morality. However you see that in this world before us now, we need to affirm that we can reclaim the high values of America. And I think we're tipping our hand quite a bit in what we're saying about our political leadings, but it's hard not to. It's hard not to. But at the end of the day, whatever candidate you feel inspired in your heart to vote for, you vote for them. And I hope this election will be the highest percentage of voter turnout that we've seen in quite a long time.
Let me just make an addendum, because Devi touched on it too. If you look in terms of what will change and what will be lasting.
That's right.
If you look back at I don't know, we've had 52 presidents or something of that nature. How many of those presidents do you remember? And how many do you remember because of the particular political platform that they had? And how much difference did that make in the course of history? For most of them, not very much. But there are key points that are not necessarily about the president or who's elected, but there are key, one might say, tipping points in the destiny of a nation. One of those key points was our very revolution, our freedom from England, the forming of a country, and the fact that George Washington especially did not turn the presidency into a monarchy, which he could have. So he did not become, he stepped down after a term rather than continue. He could have probably been elected until the end of his life, but he chose not to do that because he knew that it was not good for the nation. Another tipping point was Abraham Lincoln and the question of freedom of slavery. And so there have been certain points in history where the person in office can move the needle one way or another, but it's the moving of that needle in terms of dharma that's important. And I think that at this point, we are at such a time. There is a great deal of racial unrest and feelings that there has not been an equal playing field for people. And if that is not corrected, there's a great deal of feeling about the spread of entitlement and riches going to more and more of a narrow group, the 1%, and leaving the rest of the populace behind in that. If that tendency toward greed is not corrected, if the tendency toward racism and exclusion of others and non-caring, if those dharmic questions are not corrected, it will play very poorly for the future of this country. So this isn't politics. Read Master in terms of what he says about dharma and inclusion of people and the right of all people of no matter what religion or skin color, they're all children of God. So I think the vote now has a clearer choice between dharma and non-dharma than we have had for a long time. And that to me is much more important than the economic effects or whether you have guns or not guns or all of the key button issues of politics today. I would look at your vote in terms of dharma and adharma and vote according to your best wisdom.
And thank you, Jyotish. That was a great clarification. That leads right into the next question from Kathy Barjwaj. She said, please discuss how to act responsibly in this world. And then she gives a number of examples. It doesn't matter. She said things like, it doesn't matter how you act in this world if you follow your own deeply held beliefs. Pray instead of acting outwardly, it's more effective. Promote justice, whether successfully or not. Act outwardly only from a place of inner peace. Why Master predicted we were going into a period of turmoil and conflict. Why bother to act at all? Well, so those are all points that she was asking about how to act responsibly. So, and forgive me, Kathy, I mispronounced your last name. I know I did, but I did my best. I think it comes down to what Jyotish was just saying. Each one of us has a dharma, and it's different. It's different according to our past karma, about our temperament, our path to God, our future. But having said that, now is the time and the blessing of this period is for every person to introspect and say, what do I really believe? What is important to me? For some people, it will be joining a protest, and that's their dharma. For some people, it's to stay at home and pray. There isn't one right way. But we all need to ask God, what would you have me do at this point in time? And then have the courage to do it. No, it's not a time to be passive by any means. It's not a time to, as we said earlier, to be just like a Himalayan yogi and say, oh, what fool, or like Shakespeare in Shakespeare's play, what fools these mortals be. Now is the time to really, as Shakespeare said, stick our courage to the sticking point and to really say, what's important to me And how can I help manifest that? Maybe it's by singing in a choir. Maybe it's by calling the things we mentioned earlier. But no, one has to, this is a time of dharmic righteous action, but each person has to decide for themselves. You can't dictate it to others, because particularly at this point in our spiritual evolution, where most of us have Kriya, we're meditating, we're on the path to liberation. And so we need to ask ourselves the question, what in my path to liberation can I do to help the world circumstance at this time? So it's really a wonderful, in many ways, it's a wonderful opportunity. I was thinking, we were talking to a friend this morning in India, and she has 2 school-age children, and the schools are closed down. She lives in Delhi, and we have 2 school-age grandchildren, and their schools are closed down, just online. And I was sort of reflecting, oh, it's such a, I'm feeling badly about these children whose lives are disrupted. And then I thought, this is going to be a great strengthening thing for them as they grow older, as they become adults and mature, because they've seen that life is not fixed and predictable and everything goes on. The outward world is dependable and reliable. No, you have to adapt. You have to make the best of things. And so in so many ways, this is a time really of opportunity. What did Master say? No obstacles, opportunities. Okay, so we'll go on to the next question, and I'll read it, and then Jyotish can respond. This is from Rose. I know you have written in your blogs about how to increase our energy during this unprecedented time. What kinds of practices are helpful for you two to keep your energy up and to meet your daily challenges and to be able to support others in theirs?
Okay, that's a very good question, Rose, and I'll try to be a little bit succinct. I'll take you through a typical day for Devi and me, and that will give you an idea of what we're doing. First of all, we try to get up pretty much at the same time every day. We're fortunate that we don't have most of the time rigorous hours when we have to start something. So we prefer to allow ourselves to awaken naturally. But since our schedule is regular, it's pretty much the same time. We come out and energize and then meditate right away. That's the first action that we do. And we try to get in a good, long, deep meditation, try as well as we can. Sometimes then we have things that start relatively early, 8 in the morning, or sometimes earlier if it's an international obligation. So we try to meditate. We try to start the day on a positive note. Then we go on to whatever work we have. We get a lot of emails. We get 50, 60, 70 emails a day. And some of them are just things that you say, thank you very much. And other things require thought and real action. So we have at least, I would say, an hour or 2 hours of daily email dharma that we need to carry on. So what I'm trying to do is I try to look at that email list to see if there's anything urgent. So I spend like a half hour on emails, and then I set the emails aside, because for me, the morning is the time when my creativity is the highest. And so we've got blogs to write. We've got projects that we have to think through. We need to have something that we're proactive rather than time to be proactive rather than reactive to what's coming into on our plate. And so I like to set aside an hour or an hour and a half for thoughtful work. And then I come back to emails. And of course, if there are meetings and whatever, we have those in. We try to keep our diet good. We exercise daily. The music we play is essentially exclusively Ananda music, Swami's music, or chants, whatever. And we take a little break after lunch, and if possible, we relax a little in the evening. And
meditate before dinner.
Yeah, and meditate before dinner. So all of those things, good diet, good environment, exercise, and especially meditation, keep our energy high and moving in the right direction.
The only thing I would add to that is we try to, it's not always easy, but we try to keep our conversation and our thoughts positive. If something kind of upsetting has happened, I notice neither one of us will talk about it for a day or two. And then when the emotions are kind of settled down, not interpersonal, but something has happened in the world of Ananda, then we'll discuss it. But try to keep your thoughts positive. Try not to, as we were saying earlier about living fearlessly, worry is a tremendous drain on the energy, tremendous. And, you know, I'm going to share with you a little technique that I read in one of the Wisdom of Yogananda series, because I'll be frank here. Last night I woke up and we're kind of, they're warning there may be more lightning storms and more fires going. So I woke up in the middle of the night and I just said, oh, you know, or is it lightning? Are we going to get more fires? And I had a hard time getting back to sleep. But I found this technique of Master's, which I find really helpful. Master said, visualize a three-sided pyramid, a triangle shape. And then on one side, see the word joy. On the other side, harmony. And on the base, peace. And I just visualize that triangle. And I just keep repeating joy, harmony, peace. Joy, harmony, peace. And it really helps you to get out of a conflicted, constricted state. So everybody, you know, some people like gardening, some people like birds, feeding the birds, but find things that naturally raise your energy. I guess the sum of it all, do things that naturally raise your energy and avoid things that pull your energy down. Don't watch movies that are downward pulling. Don't, read books that are distressing. Find good, uplifting books to read. We'll give you a hint that here's an interesting book that someone recommended to us. You can get it on Amazon. It's called My Heart.
My Heart Will Triumph.
My Heart Will Triumph. And it's written by she had been one of the children. Now she's a grown woman in Medjugorje who has had all these visions. And it's the story of her life and all her spiritual experiences, but find things that uplift your energy. So
her name is Mariana Sol.
Yeah.
And SOL. So you can find it on an ebook.
Yeah. Okay. So then Rosa also asks, because we're kind of running out of time here, what practical actions could Ananda Sangha Portland take right now to deepen and strengthen our Sangha? And Hanuman asked a similar question. What is the best way to reach out to those we are not seeing on Zoom who are part of our Sangha? How can we, as a Sangha, better support everyone? Well, we've touched on that to a certain extent already. Be proactive, reach out to people, organize yourself into teams, and don't just wait, oh gosh, we haven't seen whoever, on a Zoom meeting or for a long time. Call that person. How are you doing? People are struggling with depression now, and then they tend to get, self-protective and enclosed. And, we've spoken of many things. Sing together. I know I see on your bulletins that you have book study groups. This is great. But you might have, okay, here's a concrete piece of advice. Maybe after, maybe tomorrow, in the next couple of days, you form a team. Maybe you already have it. I don't know. If you do, then forget it. But form a team. How can we support our Sangha better right now? And you will find people are so thirsty. They're so receptive to support and reaching out. And we are so fortunate that we have a spiritual family that of like-minded friends and neighbors and so forth. So just brainstorm, come up with dozens of ideas of how you can support your Sangha in this time of COVID isolation. And really, I think we'll look back on these times as the forming of Ananda in a much, much stronger, deeper way. And do you want to?
Well, Master said when he was alive, and he's probably still doing it, is that every night he went through the thoughts of all his disciples and Kriyabans. And he didn't pay attention to the negative things. He tried to reinforce the good. But if you have a little committee, go through the kind of discuss together the members of the Sangha. Generally, you'll know who's doing just fine and doesn't need much support and energy from you, who's struggling and does need support, and who's unknown. And reach out to the unknown ones and find out how they're doing. The ones who aren't struggling and are strong, use them as the warriors to reach out to others. And then finally, those that you know are struggling, make sure that you're giving them whatever energy you can give that can be helpful at this time. And that will create a magnetic vortex within your Sangha that will make it much stronger, and maybe much stronger than it's ever been.
In fact, truly. There was one last comment from Jean Rotman, and she said, I just want to thank them, meaning us, I suppose, for all that they do for us. Well, Jean, it's a joy to be able to be together in Master's name, in his love. And let's just all, we are Master's warriors right now. So let's not let anything make us doubt ourselves. Let's not let anything impede our march to God, and on the way to bring as many people as we can up on the upward journey towards true joy and towards God's peace and love. So I think we'll close with that. Surendra, I don't know if you were gonna close or if we just should, what we should do.
Thank you, Jyotish and Devi, for your wisdom and for the love that you've shared with us. You've given us a great deal to think about and to act on. Thank you so much. And God bless you. God bless Ananda Portland. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you.